How to bring Filipino spouse to USA, CR1 visa through to citizenship. This is Fred Wahl, the VisaCoach. And today's topic is, what is the process to bring your Filipino spouse to the USA and then go all the way to US citizenship? Now, I personally am very familiar with the Philippines. I have traveled all over the country from Laoag in the far north to Zamboanga in the far south. The first ever immigration petition I prepared almost 50 years ago was for my own Filipina fiancé. I am Fred Wahl, the VisaCoach, and I work for you to prepare and craft your applications to submit to U.S. immigration. And sometimes callers ask me, hey, do I fill in the forms for them, or do they have to do it themselves? Well, of course, I and the VisaCoach team together prepare your application for you. And unlike the other services, we do not abandon you once you submit your application, but we remain at your side and continue working and guiding you all the way on this journey until your Filipino spouse calls to say, well, she or he is on the way. And then after arrival to USA, I am also available to help with the next steps at U.S. immigration, obtaining the unconditional green card and eventually U.S. citizenship. Now, what is your current situation? Well, you have fallen in love. Your special someone is from the Philippines. You can start the process to bring her or him home to the USA to join you for a happy married life together. So, what do? Well, besides getting on the first available flight to the Philippines, you need to prepare yourself to overcome a complicated and difficult immigration system, well, that stands in the way of your happiness. Now, fortunately, I am here to help you. So today I'm going to explain how to bring your Filipino spouse home to the USA. And, well, please watch to the end of this video, because near the end I will also explain what happens after your spouse arrives. After all, after going through so much effort, you don't want her or him to have to leave your side. And so I will speak about the next steps after arrival, how to obtain and keep permanent residency, and finally, how your partner can become a U.S. citizen. So let's talk about how to bring your Filipina or Filipino spouse to the USA. So the big picture is, well, we prepare an application and it is submitted in the USA to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, USCIS. And then once USCIS has completed its review, the case goes to the U.S. State Department's National Visa Center, NVC, in New Hampshire. And finally, NVC couriers the case overseas to the U.S. Embassy in Manila for the in-person interview and approval of the visa. Then, your spouse uses the visa to travel to and enter the USA. So now let's get into the details. First, we submit a thick package of application forms and supporting documents and evidence. This is the, well, front-loaded petition that, well, VisaCoach is famous for. My philosophy, the VisaCoach philosophy, which we rigorously follow on every case that Team VisaCoach works on, is that success, final outcome, final approval depends 99% on the quality of your application that you and we together prepare and submit to U.S. immigration. We take every opportunity, leave no stone unturned in making your application as complete and persuasive as possible. The quality of the work we accomplish at the start, at the front of this process, determines the ultimate outcome. And when quality goes in, a positive result comes out. The petition package, is now mailed to USCIS. And spouse visa applications go to Chicago or Phoenix, depending upon where you live. And after initial sorting, then the applications are assigned and forwarded to one of 6 USCIS service centers that are scattered throughout the USA. And at the destination USCIS service center, your case is reviewed and processed. And USCIS takes many months to complete their review. Slow or fast, U.S. immigration is like a one-lane highway. The sooner you enter and get in line, the sooner you exit. And the cases that enter after you will only get to their destination after you do. So the sooner you apply, the sooner this will be behind you. Now, the review at USCIS includes an FBI background check. This is usually only on the U.S. citizen's background. However, it will also include your Filipino spouse if she or he had ever lived in the USA, well, for a while. Then when USCIS is satisfied with your application, well, they approve, at least as far as they're concerned, and hand your case over to the NVC, based in New Hampshire. While your case is at NVC, 2 fees are paid: the visa application fee and the affidavit of support fee. Then we gather and submit to NVC various civil documents and evidence that they require. And these include, well, your spouse's police clearances, the marriage and birth certificates, and your financial evidence. Now, once NVC has all of your materials, they will review them. This review usually takes 1 or more months. Eventually, NVC says you are documentarily qualified, or DQ, like the ice cream parlor. Normally, right after your case is documentarily qualified, NVC reaches out to the U.S. Embassy in Manila, checks the consulate's appointment schedule, and books your spouse's interview. They email you to advise the date and time, and then pack your application into a DHL mail bag and ship it off to the Philippines. Well, there are 2 consulate locations in the Philippines, in Manila and Cebu City. The consulate in Manila handles all spouse visa interviews. So sorry, even if your partner lives across the street from the consulate in Cebu, she or he must still make the trip to Manila for processing. And in the run-up and preparation for the interview, there are a few steps that we need to accomplish. And please recall that, well, unlike other services, a VisaCoach will still be with you on this journey and still providing personal guidance. And so at that time, I will provide you with clear instructions on exactly what needs to be done and provide detailed, personalized checklists. Now you, the U.S. sponsor, send your spouse the affidavit of support we had prepared, along with your corresponding financial evidence, such as tax returns and employment or asset proofs. And finally, your spouse undergoes a 2-day medical exam at St. Luke's Clinic in Manila. Now, on the big day, your spouse attends the interview at the U.S. Consulate in Manila. Shortly after arrival at the consulate, your spouse is going to be greeted by a local Filipino clerk and asked to show all of the documents that the consulate expected to be presented for your case. The clerk goes over each item on his or her checklist, ticking off that your spouse has brought the needed documents. And so it's critical that your partner be well prepared and has brought everything that is required, because failure to bring even one item might cause the interview to be canceled, or if allowed to proceed, might add months of additional delay until the visa is finally issued. Now, because this is so critical, and with proper planning, it is so easy to avoid problems, well, we at VisaCoach prepare for you a personalized, precise checklist on what must be brought to the consulate without fail for your case. We prepare this checklist using our knowledge of your background and situation, combined with our previous experience working with the consulate. We know what they want and what they don't want. Finally comes the actual interview. Now, this is when your spouse meets with an American consular officer. It is no longer the local hires. This officer will be making the final decision on your case. And this is the big event. During the interview, the consular officer must be convinced your relationship is bona fide and not a sham contrived for immigration purposes. And sorry to say this, but U.S. immigration has had a long and troubled history with fiancé and spouse visas. Their experience has not been a good one. For regular immigration, there are simple tests of eligibility. For example, if a naturalized U.S. citizen were to apply for his or her mother or brother to immigrate to the USA, the simple test would be birth certificates, as all the names on these official documents would match. And so the mother or brother would be clearly eligible and approved for their immigration visas. But for romance-type visas, for spouse visas like you have applied for, there is no simple, clear test. Instead, the officer must rely on you and your spouse's words, your statements that your relationship is real, not a sham for immigration purposes. And please don't get me wrong. I know that you are totally sincere, totally in love, totally genuine. But the officer does not know you like I do. There is nothing personal about the officer's suspicions. The problem is that the well has been poisoned by the con men and scammers who long ago figured out that if they could trick their way into the USA, And so these crooks have made it difficult for honest people like you. Now, because no simple, reliable test exists, because so many consular officers have been, tricked and made fools of before, because of their frustration and embarrassment, the consular officers have decided to take a pessimistic and confrontational attitude that all romance visa cases are probably shams, not bona fide. So sadly, they will treat you and your spouse as guilty until proven innocent. Now, the original application that we prepared and submitted to USCIS long ago, at the start of the application process, now is open on the consular officer's desk for his or her preparation for the interview. Now, the officer always reviews the application while your partner is waiting in the lobby of the consulate. He or she is preparing what questions to ask and is searching for red flags that increase his or her suspicion. The officer is looking for reasons to deny. And this is why the VisaCoach method of front-loading a petition is so valuable. We craft each application understanding the consular officer's standpoint. We understand that as a professional, if he or she finds convincing evidence of your sincerity, he or she will be prepared to approve and issue the visa. But we also know that if it is not totally clear that the couple is genuine, if for any reason he or she is not totally convinced, then the officer would prefer to deny instead of taking any chances. After all, if he or she approves a scamming couple, the officer's career, reputation is hurt. But if the officer denies an honest couple, he or she is only being diligent, and the denied couple can always reapply. So no harm done. So what we want to do is help the officer make the right decision the first time. We help him or her do their job by going the extra mile to make sure your application does the talking for you, that it contains what is needed to convince a reasonable but skeptical person to trust you and your situation. Now, it would be nice if you could attend the interview and personally smooth out any misunderstandings before they cause problems. But you won't be there. Only your spouse attends the interview. And even if you are present in the Philippines, you will not be able to enter the consulate. You'll be kept outside. Your spouse faces the interview alone. Now, while you can't be there in person, our plan at VisaCoach is to help you to be there at least in spirit. With each VisaCoach front-loaded application, we include a personal statement from you that describes how you met, why you were attracted to each other, the development of your relationship, key moments in your courtship, the circumstances of your proposal, what happened at the wedding, and your plans for a future life and family together in the USA. Bona fide couples have history. They have plans. And their history and plans have many, many details. By sharing these details, we help the officer to get to know you. And once the officer gets to know you, he or she is surely going to trust you and your situation. So for most of my clients, creative writing is difficult. I know it's difficult for me. But I have designed our system at VisaCoach to help make it easy for you to tell your important, honest, detailed story. We guide you step by step, bit by bit, prompting you with short questions in order to hear your answers in your voice. Then, using our expertise in what is important to the consular officer's decision, we combine and edit your words together, crafting a clear, readable document that goes a long, long way to bring the consular officer to an understanding of you and your spouse as two sympathetic, honest human beings, people who are truly in love, people who could easily be his or her neighbors back in the USA. By front-loading your application with well-chosen evidence, by including you there in spirit, we set the tone for a successful interview. Now, most of VisaCoach's interviews are short and sweet, ending with, "Welcome to the USA." Now, about 2 weeks later, the consulate has printed the visa into your spouse's passport and then returns her or his passport to your partner using LBC Express Courier. Now, the courier can deliver the passport to your spouse's home. They have offices and couriers on motorcycles scattered all over the Philippines to help do so. But if your spouse prefers, she or he can arrange to personally pick the passport up at one of the 99 LBC offices, including one at the Mall of Asia. Now, your spouse's visa is valid for 6 months. The clock starts on the date of the St. Luke's medical, not at the interview. This gives your spouse plenty of time to settle affairs before leaving for the USA. But before your spouse boards the aircraft, she or he must attend a 2-hour class sponsored by the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, CFO. This is a requirement made by the Philippines government, basically to protect your spouse, teaching how to recognize spousal abuse and what to do about it. Now, your spouse must take the class and obtain the stamp affixed to her or his passport. And this is checked at the airport. Your partner will not be allowed onto the aircraft without proof of taking the class. Now, soon after arrival in the USA, your Filipino spouse gets her or his green card. Now, regularly I am asked, hey, why does a spouse visa take longer to get than a fiancé visa? Well, the answer is because a fiancé visa is only like a temporary tourist visa. It only gives your partner permission to visit the USA for 90 days. But the spouse visa is more serious, well, at least in the eyes of U.S. immigration. It is considered regular immigration. They know your partner is not coming for a short visit, but is coming to stay here permanently. So the process for a spouse visa takes longer because in addition to granting permission to cross the border into the USA, your partner is granted permission to stay as a lawful resident. This means her or his green card is already approved and is waiting on your partner's arrival to be issued. But wait, this green card has an expiry date that's only 2 years away. The reason that they only issue a conditional green card, valid for only 2 years, is because U.S. immigration, well, is still cautious. They're still skeptical about your romance case, and they want one more opportunity to catch you in fraud. So just prior to the end of the 2 years lawful residence, we apply to USCIS once again, and this application is called Removal of Conditions on Residence. Now, at the end of this process, usually 1 to 2 years, your Filipino spouse finally gets a regular green card, and this one is permanent without any conditions. And for many, this is the end of the U.S. immigration journey. Your Filipino spouse has her or his green card and can reside in the USA as long as she or he wants. Your spouse is still a citizen of the Philippines and still uses her or his Philippines passport when traveling outside the USA. However, for most, there is one last final step that can be taken. Once your Filipino spouse has been a lawful U.S. resident for 3 years, if she or he wants, she can apply to become a U.S. citizen and be able to vote in U.S. elections and travel using a U.S. passport. Now, the couple's team VisaCoach helps become our friends and family. We are honored to guide you through each step of the immigration journey, starting from courtship to arrival on the spouse visa to green card and permanent residency, and finally all the way through to naturalization and U.S. citizenship. This was Fred Wahl, the VisaCoach, and I'm here to personally guide you on this journey. Now, please like or add your comments to this video. And, well, click here to sign up for a monthly newsletter and receive bonus ebooks. Here for YouTube's recommendations. Here for a full playlist of recent videos on Philippines visas. And here to subscribe to our channel.